Ladies and gentlemen, I am at the point on my journey through the YouTube where people are finally looking at my channel and they're saying yes. And I gotta say, it is a very exciting thing. But I think we're at the point in this relationship where you're hearing me talking about frugality and you're thinking, this guy must not buy anything. And the other day I received a comment about what I spend my money on. And I thought, well, I spend my money on whatever I want. So I wanted to create a video about how I spend my money as a frugal minimalist, but I wanted to preface this video with a story called The Monk and the Minister. Two close boyhood friends grow up and go their separate ways. One becomes a humble monk, the other a rich and powerful minister to the king. Years later, they meet. As they catch up, the portly minister in his fine robes takes pity on the thin and shabby monk. Seeking to help, he says, "You know, if you could learn to cater to the king, you wouldn't have to live on rice and beans." To which the monk replies, "If you could learn to live on rice and beans, you wouldn't have to cater to the king." One of the reasons that I wanted to start this YouTube channel is because until I was 26 years old, I had never made over $10,000 in 1 year of my life. But with that money, I traveled to 35 countries around the world. I lived abroad and I graduated college debt-free. And that period was an incredibly rich time in my life. And what made it so rich was I had a deep appreciation for everything I did. And I learned how rich life is with less. So I wanted to create a channel talking about frugal living because I think that living like the monk on rice and beans is better than living like the minister catering to the king. So in this video, I want to talk about 12 things I spend my money on as a frugal minimalist. But before I begin, as a struggling YouTuber, I must ask one thing of you. Right down there, there's a button that looks like this. It's called the like button. If you can just give it a little tap, I would really appreciate that and it would really help out my channel, all right? So let's begin. But before I begin, I must say something very important about personal finance. We are all on our different journeys through life. What works for me might not work for you. What's easy for me might not be easy for you. And what I find value in, you might not find value in. And that's okay because we are all different. And that's what makes the world beautiful. I mean, can you imagine a world where we all thought and acted the exact same? How dull would that be? My goal of this channel is to show you what has worked for me, and hopefully you can apply it in your life, or at least you will think differently. So the first thing I spend my money on is the best thing money can buy. Now, you might be asking yourself, Austin, what is the best thing that money can buy? Well, it's the thing that I dedicate 60% of my income to, and that is my freedom. And I buy my freedom three ways. One is through low living expenses, which makes money leave slower. Two is an emergency fund, which protects me from life surprises. And three is index funds to grow my money. Now, my freedom is very important to me. It is more important than any material possession. And I don't want to spend my life worrying about money. And I don't want money to stop me from doing what I want. So I know I need money to grant me freedom because money equals options. And life is short. So take your freedom seriously. And the second thing I spend my money on is a room with a view. 2 years ago, I got in my car and I drove out to Colorado to live because one of my values is being surrounded by beautiful nature. I mean, I just love walking outside every single day and just seeing grand mountains everywhere. And I'm willing to spend more money for that. But luckily I have it good and my rent is pretty cheap, but I didn't know that when I first moved out here. I am willing to spend more money being in a location that is beautiful because I love nature. I would not move to a place because they have a cheaper tax rate. And the third thing I spend my money on is spending time with Mother Nature. As I just mentioned, I live in Colorado, so I can go somewhere and in 5 minutes, I am surrounded by some of the most beautiful nature in Estados Unidos. And most of my hobbies are connected to nature. I love hiking, biking, and just sitting by the river and drinking beer. And the best part about Mother Nature is that she don't want your money. Mother Nature don't charge anything. All Mother Nature wants is for you to spend time with her. A lot of people have hobbies that are very expensive and are connected to money, but most of my hobbies are connected to nature, which is basically free. All you have to do is pay for the gas and the equipment. And the fourth thing that I spend my money on is my mental health. Some of the biggest names in YouTube tell people not to go to coffee shops or breweries, but I think that is just nonsense. I don't think you can base all your decisions off money. One of my favorite things to do since I live in Colorado is after a hike go to a brewery and have a few drinks with some friends. And this might cost me $20 to $30, but to me, that is money well spent. I have no problem spending money on social events like concerts, coffee shops, or breweries. Sure, these things cost money, but as long as you don't go overboard and you do it with other human beings, it is very good for your mental health. And I have no problem spending my money on social events because I know they are good for my mental health. Sure, you can cut these out and you save money, but at what cost? And the fifth thing that I spend my money on is the occasional restaurant trip. Ladies and gentlemen, since I have been making a little bit more money in life, I have been a little bit more lenient on eating out, but I still want it to remain a special occasion, so I don't do it all the time because I think that's just being lazy and you won't appreciate the food. So I have established a set of rules for myself. Rule number 1, eat at places that can cook better than I can, which to be honest is most places. Rule number 2, eat at places where the food isn't frozen. I have worked in restaurants and I know that any chain that is run by a corporation is just frozen food, no matter how well they advertise it. Rule number 3, eat out when it's with other people. Rule number 4, 1 lazy meal a week. I can afford to eat out more than I used to, and I do, but I do with intention and not just eat out because I don't want to cook that day. And the sixth thing that I spend my money on is weekend trips. Since I live in Colorado, one of my favorite things to do is camping and sometimes going to the backcountry to camp. Last year I did a hike that was 4 days, 3 nights through 4 mountain passes called Maroon Bells. Here is a picture of me. Instead of taking one big vacation throughout the year, I like to take a bunch of small vacations that are long weekends and do things like camping. And the best part about Mother Nature and camping is Mother Nature don't charge anything. Sure, there are some fees like the gas to get there, the equipment, and then sometimes the camping fee, but you might spend a weekend and only spend $50. Most people have vacations where they think they need to spend thousands of dollars and go on a cruise. But if you just have hobbies and you do things like camping, this is a lot cheaper and just as enjoyable in my opinion. And the seventh thing I spend my money on is visiting friends and family. Now I have friends and family throughout the country and I like to make multiple trips throughout the year to visit people, even if it's just a long weekend. And I don't mind spending my money on that. Usually I'm able to find the deals. I'm very good at finding deals. Last year I went from Colorado to Georgia for $40 round trip. Frontier Airlines at 12 o'clock at night, ladies and gentlemen. But I do not mind spending my money on these things. I think they provide value. And even if I can't find a deal, I still do it. And the eighth thing that I spend my money on is peace of mind. Until recently, I was on a shoestring budget, ladies and gentlemen. My first car was a 1986 Toyota Camry that I bought for $500. And there came a point when I needed to replace the tires, but I didn't have the money to do it. So I just drove on bad tires and it was very scary. Now I will spend my money on anything that gives me peace of mind. The other day, one of my tires had a leak, so I took it in to get it patched. It couldn't be patched, so I just said replace them. I didn't even think about it. I would rather spend $400 on a pair of tires than drive thinking that I'm gonna have a bad accident on the highway. I will spend my money on anything that would give me peace of mind. And the ninth thing that I spend my money on is high quality items. Certain things that I know that will last me years, I do not mind spending my money on. For example, when I first started this YouTube channel, my old laptop didn't allow me to edit videos. So I bought this new laptop right here for about $1,000 so I can edit videos because it's powerful enough. I don't mind spending my money on something if I know it works. Another example is I had a rain jacket that I bought for $30, and whenever it rained, it didn't really do a good job. So I bought a $100 rain jacket, and when it rains, it actually works and it doesn't seep through. I would rather spend my money on something that I know that works than save money buying something that doesn't work. It's also a lot better for the environment. And the 10th thing that I spend my money on is this rock and bod. Now, health is something that's very important to me. If you couldn't tell from this rock and bod, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just kidding. But I do not mind spending money on things that I know are good for my health, like spending money on high quality foods. But this does not mean spending money on high quality packaging. That's just being a sucker. but I do not mind spending money on fruits and vegetables or anything else that I know is good for my health. Also, I have a gym membership at Planet Fitness. It's only $10 a month, which, it's not that much money. But it's very important to do because that's good for your health. I believe that you either pay the farmer for the high quality foods or you pay the doctor for the high medical bills. And the 11th thing that I spend my money on is ownership. Anything besides a house, I believe in owning. I have never had a car payment and I have never paid anything off a payment plan. I like to know that things are mine. If something breaks, then I'm ultimately responsible for it. I don't want to have to worry about missing a payment or breaking something that isn't mine. I like to own things, and that's something that is very valuable to me. And the 12th thing and the final thing on this list is exploration. Since the pandemic, I have not been abroad for the last 2 years, but before then, I was traveling a lot. I would save about $4,000 and then travel somewhere for 3 months, and it was incredible. If you're young watching this, please go travel. Do it when you're young. It's an incredible experience, but I like to do something called ground level travel, which is where you're at the ground level, where you're experiencing the culture, you're speaking their language, you're eating their food, you're staying at humble accommodation. It's a great way to experience the country. A lot of people like to do cruises or go to resorts, but the problem with this is you don't get any of the culture. And I know that ground level travel is not for everyone, but it's an incredible thing to do, and it's ultimately much cheaper. And those are the 10 things that I spend my money on as a frugal minimalist. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, comment down below. Muchas gracias, que tengo un buen día. Muchas gracias, amigos. Nos vemos.